Hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Seth the Programmer. I think this is quite an interesting one. It's a versus battle and it's Boros versus Garou. One Punch Man. Both One Punch Man villains. I suppose you could call Garou a villain. He is beating up heroes. But I think it's interesting because both of them have actually encountered Saitama and have been hit by Saitama. I'm correct, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Boros obviously was the final villain in the season 1. He got punched by Saitama twice to be defeated. He had that armor on that Saitama punched off, and then the whole fight was literally just Boros just punching the crap out of Saitama for a while, and then Saitama decided to punch him again. And I remember Boros saying he didn't even feel like he'd gone all out. Garou has been hand-chopped in the the shoulder, which knocked him out like straight away, but that wasn't even Saitama trying at all. So again though, both situations seem to be Saitama not going all out 100%, and so I don't know how they're going to scale this scenario if Boros and Garou are to fight each other, but in my head they're the two situations where they have both encountered Saitama and how it has gone down. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I've probably missed stuff that Seth's going to go over in this. You've never watched the Seth the Programmer video, have you?
Don't think so.
There's going to be a lot of numbers in this, I imagine. I get very confused, but it's okay. So does other people, and then I can be stupid and people don't mind. So let's do this. Boros versus Garou. He has done a couple of other One Punch Man things. I told you that he did the Saitama vs Dragon Ball, didn't I?
Hello everyone, it is your host, Seth the Programmer. Today we're actually going to be talking about One Punch Man.
Nice.
And for a lot of people, One Punch Man and power scaling seems to be a bad taste in their mouth. Whenever they hear it, they're like, well, Saitama is a limited scan character, he can't be power scaled, and stuff like that. But a lot of the time I'm surprised because they seem to ignore how most of the series is actually formulated around
Everyone else.
power scaling the other cast.
Yeah.
Like Genos versus Sea King, Genos versus Sonic,
Oof.
or how all the S-Class heroes scale to even older heroes in the audiobooks. And whenever you see an interview with the author of One Punch Man, he's often found power scaling himself. So I thought it would be interesting to actually go over one of those aspects, which is Garou versus Boros, which is actually something One himself touched up on in an interview, although he kind of answered it a little bit vague, and I don't blame him. You don't want to spoil something like that so blatantly. But for those of you who are unaware of what has been going on in the webcomic, Garou has gotten far, far stronger to the point where he could definitely rival Boros. I know that the One Punch Man community has been going back and forth on this topic for a while, but I intend to end any questions about who would actually win. So let's go into the different factors that would affect the outcome of this fight.
Okay. Oh, this is so cool.
First, let's talk about Boros, the dominator of the universe, the head honcho of Season 1.
He was so cool.
Boros is an alien warlord leading the alien invaders known as the Dark Matter Thieves. He is far stronger than any of the other aliens accompanying him, even including powerful creatures like Melzigard and Gur-Yugen-Shu.
They were strong.
After his initial fight with Saitama, Saitama claimed he was the strongest opponent he had ever fought to Genos. Boros actually has many analogies to Saitama as well. They are both impossibly strong fighters that have become apathetic with everything in their lives and seek none other than looking for a worthy opponent to test their might. One of Boros' main tools is his meteoric burst, which was stated in the One Punch Man compass to achieve speed and power beyond the limits of what any living being can endure. He gives him far greater speed and was even able to launch Saitama to the moon with a single kick. Along with his regeneration, which was good enough to reform his body from just a bloody mist, makes him an incredibly dangerous fighter and one of the most powerful characters in the series. On top of this, his collapsing star, Roaring Cannon, was stated to be able to shave the planet in the manga, and it was implied to be powerful enough to destroy the planet itself in the anime and the Secret Compass. Some translations also say he's strong enough to destroy stars, although this is actually usually meaning planet/life wiping, also known as Hoshi in Japanese. And this makes more sense because Boros isn't even considered a god-level threat in many data books, and by One, he's actually considered Dragon Plus. Meaning if he were a life wiper, it'd be most consistent with his ranking. Now, I know that's a contentious topic that needs its own video, but that's generally what's considered acceptable by One Punch Man's own lore. And I know in the past I've said some things about it being star level, however, that is before I kind of went through it myself and kind of considered the fact of, you know, what Hoshi can really mean. and what it would really mean for a Dragon Plus level threat to exist in the verse. Due to the second law of thermodynamics, his durability should be relatively as impressive as his attack potency, because obviously if he didn't have any, if at all, relative durability, he would just rip himself apart as he was attacking,
Yeah,
which
he would
clearly
kill
was
himself.
never shown. In fact, it being stated that his body can even handle the insane speed and power beyond what normal beings can endure actually supports the law of thermodynamics. However, there are a number of disadvantages to Boros' power set, as well as, for instance, meteoric bursts as compared to anaerobic exercise, and so tires him out quickly. We also know that Boros likes to hold back at first to the point of wearing a suit of armor that restricts his power like some alien version of Kenpachi's eye patch from Bleach. Which also makes sense since he's analogous to Saitama, who does pretty much the same thing, just without a physical item limiting his power. We also saw that despite the high praise his speed is given, that Saitama was easily able to blitz him with his consecutive normal punches and could block just about almost everything he had thrown at him. We also see that despite his monstrous power, Boros acts more like a man than a monster, and in complete contrast to the near-perfect monster Garou, who is more like a man acting like a monster, perhaps an intentional parallel. Now, on to Garou. Garou, even early on in the series, displays some incredibly impressive speed feats. Even when he was massively injured, he was capable of keeping up with a Genos who could easily dodge light-based attacks from G4. He was also able to react to attacks from Orochi, who in a similar situation easily blitzed a Awakened Cockroach, who was not only fast enough to react to Genos, but also bragged that even light-speed attacks wouldn't be able to hit him. Garou is the hero hunter and wannabe monster that ends up becoming one of Saitama's most difficult opponents thanks to his unwillingness to give in and his ability to constantly improve even as he fights. On the surface, Garou just seems like the one kid who roots for the villain when he watches cartoons, but there's significantly more to his motivation than that. Grown up, bullied by those around him, not only due to his unpopularity, but because of his fondness for villains, Garou has a deep-seated desire to change the world with his own hands. He wishes to force conformity across the world via unbiased, absolute evil. This would then push Garou to evolve from a guy who got chopped on the neck and knocked out in one shot because he was in Saitama's way, to genuinely impressing him and evolving into an insane Dragon Plus level threat that would dismantle most of the S-Class.
Oh, wow.
Where Boros was a being who already started at the top, Garou is an antagonist who would try and reach the top through hard work in life-or-death situations. Now from here, there will be spoilers from the webcomic for those that are anime/manga only. Although it probably won't spoil anything too crazy that you probably wouldn't figure out yourself naturally, such as Saitama fights Garou, etc. Garou has learned a great number of martial arts over his time in the series.
I apologize,
babe. To become stronger and these motivations I described earlier. The first of these being the water-flowing, rock-smashing fist, a martial art specializing in defense. With this, he can redirect blows back at his opponents with double the force. He also learns Whirlwind Iron Cutting Fist, a martial art focused on brutal attacks that can carve apart his opponents. He is capable of combining these two arts together into a single, Cross-Fang Dragon Slayer Fist. We have even seen him emulate more unconventional fighting styles like Tank Top Master's Tank Topper techniques and Watch Dog Man's Beast-like
I knew about the dog thing.
We also see that Garou in his fight with Saitama was able to take incredible punishment. He was able to withstand Saitama's consecutive normal punches and even momentarily trade blows with Saitama's two-handed consecutive normal punches before being overpowered. Garou even goes so far as to survive a serious attack from Saitama. On top of this, Garou is also an extremely skilled martial artist, as we described earlier. That was even able to push Saitama to use some of his true power with his own martial arts style that was a combination of every fighting style he had ever encountered in his life, which he calls the Monster Calamity God Slayer Fist. And yes, that's the real name.
That's class.
In his battle with the A and B class heroes, we were also given an idea of Garou's impressive resilience. Even when he was paralyzed, dehydrated, had a fever, hadn't slept or eaten for several
he was
days,
screwed
and
in that
was being
fight.
affected by paralyzing venom, he was still able to contend with a powerful hero such as Genos. This is most likely due to Garou's own fighting spirit that allows him to continue on no matter his injuries. He displayed this ability against Psychos, when she tried to hold him in place with her psychic powers. Metalbat, who also has fighting spirit, considered mortal injury to be a mere inconvenience, and was ready to continue fighting Garou even beyond death as long as he was still pumped up. So there are many things going for his just raw resilience. As a monster, we were also shown Garou's ability to regenerate lost limbs and even a smashed open torso. Garou's only real weakness is his cocky attitude. He frequently underestimates his opponents, which can sometimes get him in trouble. Given all of these things, I think it's pretty easy to see actually how Garou wins this fight. For one, the only argument to suggest that Boros could even keep up with a human Garou is to say that his speed is beyond the limits of what any living being can endure. But there are numerous statements of Garou constantly surpassing his own limits anyway, so this argument is shaky at best. Even when he was only considered a half-monster, Psycho said that he was already on the path to surpassing his limits and even exceeding Orochi. Also, him surviving the serious headbutt from Saitama also proves that he would be able to actually survive Boros' most powerful attack, as the serious punch was able to easily overpower it. It's also worth noting that recently in the manga, Saitama admitted that none of the enemies he's ever fought actually required the serious punch to defeat. This would include Boros. Boros basically has no way to even hit Garou, even if we said that they were close in speed due to the astronomically large skill gap. I've seen some real smooth brains out there try to argue that because he's an alien, Garou wouldn't be able to counter his alien fighting style that they pull out of nowhere.
Right.
But Boros is actually shown throwing ordinary punches.
Yeah, he didn't do anything different.
It should also be noted that Saitama specifically talks about how good Garou is at hand-to-hand combat, while he says nothing about Boros. This also makes more sense with one statement where he says Garou would have the advantage in close quarters. Boros does have regen, but so does Garou. There's a known limit to Boros' stamina and regen, but this is not the case for Garou. As well as Garou's ability to continue at the brink of death and grow in speed and power with his fighting spirit. On top of all of this, we know from the second audiobook that Saitama gets strong enough to one-shot himself every single day. You could also argue that the simulations couldn't simply register that Saitama's true power. However, Saitama himself seems to agree that obviously the version of himself from yesterday wouldn't beat him. So the Saitama that Garou fought is possibly significantly stronger than the Saitama that Boros had a tangle with, and Saitama was using more powerful techniques as well versus Garou, even though he was even stronger than before. Both Garou and Boros are known to hold back initially, but gradually as the fight progresses, Garou would start to humiliate the alien in basically every way until he is eventually victorious. Even if you think Boros can hurt Garou, he won't be given any chance to actually hit him.
Right.
We see that in his fight with Super Alloy Darkshine, that Garou just continued to pummel him over and over until Darkshine was eventually worn down and defeated.
Whoa.
Boros would be left in a similar situation where he just constantly gets beaten down until the internal energy regen runs out. Even if you were to imply that there were rivals in strength and take the one statement completely out of context, it can be argued that Garou has far superior skill and endurance, as well as fighting spirit that allows him to keep fighting in near-death situations constantly. Whereas Boros using his full powers is constantly draining him, meaning even at best, Boros is getting a beatdown similar to Goku versus Frieza dynamic, but probably much worse to an actual huge skill gap. In closing, one saying, I think it would be a good fight can have a multitude of meanings. People think stomps in fiction are good fights all the time. Saitama versus Boros can be considered a good fight. Super Saiyan 2 Gohan versus Perfect Cell from Dragon Ball is usually considered a good fight by their fan base. Yoko Kurama versus Karasu from
Even though it's just one-sided,
is usually considered a good fight by their fan base. Kratos versus Zeus from God of War is usually considered a good fight by their fan base. You get the idea. Despite these battles being stomps a lot of the time, or pretty one-sided, people can classify them as good. Good fight doesn't inherently mean the characters are having an actual pitch competition. Even in real life, a dominating performance by a professional fighter against someone with a lot of will are considered great underdog fights or just great fights in general. It's a rather subjective saying. And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. A special thanks to Webcam Parrot for giving me a lot of research on the webcomic. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, I am one of those anime manga only guys, so he was a big help with the webcomic only side of things, especially because Garou is pretty much only webcomic at this point when in his monster form, so be sure to go check him out. He's definitely the best One Punch Man researcher out there, and he has a channel, and he ranks all the S-class heroes, and you guys can go check it out. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit a like on it, 400 views. And subscribe.
Damn, that's a big shout out. That's class. I love the outro. So, Garou would win.
I thought it was Boros who would win, but now...
With all that, you know what I mean? He gives you everything. It gives you everything. As soon as he comes up with a statement, he has something to just back it up.
Yeah, I like that he does his research.
Yeah, it's class, isn't it? Like, there wasn't as too many numbers that I used to see on screen and that. And I'm glad it wasn't too spoilery.
Yeah.
That was
a Zap popped up. I was just like,
I was going to say to you could leave if you want. But that was alright. That just gives like a couple of fight things away. It hasn't given away how the story goes or anything, so that's okay. So yeah, there's that. Thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. It's all you guys. News down.